the first session on figures of speech, we had a bit of detailed analysis and background regarding where figures of speech are used and with what purpose and why they are used and where they are used. As we discussed, they are used precisely in poetic genre, right? Under poetry, we also discuss what are the subgenres under which figures of speech can be used. Okay, so now let us look into the names of figures of speech and explanation of those, and look into few examples in order to get more clarity on how these figures of speech are used and in what context and how they are composed generally. Okay, so let us look into figures of speech, which are nothing but literary devices used in poetry, right? And apart from figures of speech, when you address them, so as I said, 99% of the times they are used in poetic genre, not in other genres. Okay, so we have to also know, if not figures of speech, what kind of literary devices are usually used in other genres, in other forms of literature, right? I have been using this word genre. I think obviously most of you are aware of it, but still, for your information, I just have to clarify that the word genre, G-E-N-R-E, it's generally known as a French term for the English word form, F-O-R-M. Okay, so instead of forms of literature, which looks very informal, okay, so when I say genre of literature in a very formal way, I just mean different forms of literature. Okay, so genre means forms. Okay, so okay, coming back to, if not poetry, what kind of other literary devices which could be used in non-poetical genres like novels, short stories, then novellas, and any other forms of fiction like the general writing, like any kind of discourse or essays. Okay, so you find that you can have something called irony. Okay, irony is a kind of literary device which is used to convey the exact opposite meaning of what the person is saying. Okay, so that is irony, right? And especially it is used on contextual basis, right? For example, in some short story. Okay, so maybe it begins with a very pleasant, happy relationship of a couple, right? As you have in your first unit previously discussed in Service of Love, right? The couple there were so happy, Joe and Delia, and they were quite well to do in the story, not very rich, but their lifestyle was manageable, right? But towards the end, you realize that they were not doing any art oriented works, but they were actually doing some menial jobs at a laundry, okay, to run their household. So this is the irony of the situation, where they were the pupils of art. They were the students who were learning art from the prolific and high profile teachers, right? But they ended up doing some kind of menial jobs to keep their household alive and happy. So that is the irony, situational irony, that is used uh, to convey the exact opposite of what began, but something else happens at the ending. Okay, so that is irony. So then you have something called satire, right? Satire is also kind of uh, what do you say, literary device, wherein um, it is a mixture of criticism plus humor. Okay, satirizing basically means criticizing, but it's not a direct criticism. It is a kind of mockery. You are trying to mock at someone, you are trying to tease someone, that is, you are trying to criticize someone in a humorous way. So that literary device is called satire. And these literary devices, I am talking about them because they are not limited to prose. Sometimes they are also used in poetry. Right? If you look at Alexander Pope, the old English poet, okay, uh, very famously kind of known as the neoclassical poet, okay, the classicist poet, neoclassical poet. If you look at Alexander Pope, he uses lots and lots of satire in his poetry when he writes that famous lengthy poem called Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. So such kinds of many examples are to be found in poetry when it comes to use of these literary devices, irony, satire, wit, okay, pun, where you are trying to play upon the words. Okay, so apart from that, if we have to come back to the actual figures of speech, and those satires and ironies, they are also used in poetry, but many times it happens that you don't find the figures of speech in other fictional genres, but those satires and ironies which are part of fictional genres can be used and are used in poetry most of the times. Okay, so this is the difference I wanted you to keep in mind. That is why I was elaborating so much upon those literary devices. Okay, so now let us discuss precisely the figures of speech. Okay, we shall start with simile. Okay, simile, simile. What is a simile? Simile is a figure of speech where you are trying to compare two things with the usage of comparative words like as and like. Okay, as and like. For example, you can say camel is like the ship of a desert. Okay, camel is like the ship of a desert. Okay, and you can also use it in typical comparative usage with the use of double conjunctions, like you have, for example, she is as delicate as a flower. Okay, you are using the analogy, you are drawing the direct one to one parallel analogy between comparison. Analogy basically again means comparison, which is also sometimes used as a literary device, okay, to bring in the direct comparison between two things, or a thing and a person, or two people. Okay, so if you just say she is as delicate as a flower, you are bringing the direct analogy comparison between flower and a girl or a woman, for example, because the gender used is she, right? So this is how simile can be used, either with comparative like as soon as, and as delicate as lovely as. Okay, and you can also use the word comparative word like right, sorry, like a like. Okay, so then you have the second figure of speech called metaphor. Okay, metaphor, it is an imaginative comparison of two unlike things that does not use either like or as. Okay, in simile you are using the comparative words like or as. In metaphor you don't use these words, but you are serving the same purpose. Okay. In simile also there was one to one direct connection, comparison between two things or people. Okay. In metaphor also you are bringing in direct one to one comparison or analogy between two people, but without using the words like as and like. It is a kind of direct comparison that you are using in metaphor. Previously we took this example, right, for simile. Camel is like the ship of a desert. Okay, you are using the word like. If you have to convert it into metaphor, you say that camel is the ship of the desert. You just omit the usage of like. You just take the word like. You can just translate it as camel is the ship of the desert. So it is a direct comparison which is little more effective than simile. And let me tell you that these two figures of speech, metaphor and simile, many times they are interchangeable. Okay, and they are translatable from each other. Okay, they can be interchanged from one form to the other. Okay, so next you have another example. Let us take for metaphor. Example, her mother's love was a lighthouse in the storm of disappointment. So look at the metaphor. Mother's love is compared directly to lighthouse. If you convert it into simile, it becomes his mother's love was like a lighthouse. Okay, but both the figures of speech serve the same purpose, except that metaphor is more effective because it is a direct comparison. It does not take comparative words like and as. Okay, so the next figure of speech, the third one you have, is personification. Okay, in personification what happens, the inanimate objects, that means the lifeless objects, are being given the characteristics of a human being. Okay, the inanimate objects are sometimes even lifeless objects are being characteristics of a human being. Okay, for example, look at this sentence. She did not realize that opportunity was knocking at her door. Okay, what is opportunity? It is a kind of abstract noun, right? So it is not a name of any human being. It's not a proper noun, right? So you see that the word opportunity is given the attribute of a human attribute of performing a task called knocking at the door. Okay, so this is how the figure of speech personification comes into being. Okay, next you have alliteration. Here what you do is you place the words in the same beginning consonant sound next to each other or very close succession in order to create a sound element. Okay, it's like the rhyming words. In a line you have many consonants, multiple consonants, so it almost sounds like all the words are very similar to each other. Okay, when it comes to phonetics, when it comes to their sound and pronunciation, look at this line, many merry maidens meet. Okay, it does of course give a very meaningful meaning. It's not a meaningless line. Okay, many merry maidens meet. They all begin with a single consonant sound of m, right? The letter M, the consonant sound of letter M, which is common to all the words in this line from a poem. Okay, so this is how it creates the kind of more effective rhythmic and rhyming effect in lines of a poem, in lines of poem. So that is how this holds greater importance as well. This is nothing but alliteration. Okay, So these were some of few of the figures of speech which we are going to further discuss, that how Shakespeare uses them, and moving ahead how Khalil Gibran also uses them in the prescribed poem for your current semester.